Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Columbia City. Today is episode 28. Just like last episode, it's going to be an infrastructure expansion episode, but it's also sorely needed. So what we're going to be doing here is we're finally going to be placing down some rail infrastructure in the north end of the city. We're basically just getting this tunnel that comes out from below the buildings near the water and just making it extend. So we have an actual rail line over here. We've also placed a Union Station. It's a station from Australia by Bad Peanut, which is an absolutely awesome asset, and I love it. I'm going to be placing very bare bones infrastructure for it today. We're going to be using the rail tracks from the Railway mod. I've been sort of waiting on Tim the Terrible's North American Rail networks, but they haven't quite come out yet, and I really needed to get this project done in the city, so we can always upgrade these tracks to those once they come out. For now, I think we're good, and these tracks are going to do an excellent job. I'm also not going to be detailing anything this episode, so we're not going to really be looking up close. So I think we're good with this, basically. This, yeah, I'm not, okay, because Seattle's station is King Street Station. King Street Station is sort of sunken in here in this weird district with a stadium, or multiple stadiums, and a bunch of other stuff. It's a very complicated area. This area here is going to be a little bit less complicated in terms of infrastructure, and it's also going to be a little bit different in terms of the surroundings. It's not going to be industrial and, you know, the stadiums and parking lots and a bunch of, I mean, actually no, we will have some older development around here, but it's going to be different. It's going to be different from King Street Station in a lot of ways. It's definitely not based off of King Street Station. It's going to be its own station with its own surroundings. Basically, the area surrounding this is going to have a bunch of older stuff. We're going to have a couple different districts around here. I was sort of going back and forth. I'll explain this more in the next episode. I was just going back and forth over whether it should be an old town or a more newly developed area with a lot of Vancouver inspiration, because it's next to what will be the park inspired by Stanley Park. But I decided to go for an older feel because of some stuff I want to do by the waterfronts. It's going to be an interesting area, let's just say that. We're going to have a couple of different districts, which definitely will have their own feels. I think you're really going to like it, and that those episodes, the two main ones, I guess, for this area will come out as the next two episodes. So that's definitely something to look forward to after these two infrastructure expansion episodes, although I know a lot of you do really enjoy these videos where I expand infrastructure, and I'll make sure that whenever I do this, I make a video about it. Even if it's not as captivating necessarily, it's very necessary work, and maybe it's useful to be able to see my sort of thought process through this. And yeah, I've actually just now been working on just some off-camera expansion of some of the development in the middle of the city near downtown, and that kind of stuff I'm just basically going to do off-camera mostly, just because a lot of it is just very similar to stuff you've already seen. The infrastructure expansion, while it is similar, I feel like it's more important to do on camera, or at least mostly on camera, simply because it's really the shape of the city. Like, it's not a neighborhood, which is going to be a generic neighborhood. It's, you know, maybe a generic road layout, but it's a road layout that'll really govern the way the city works, and it's probably worth showing you, I guess. And same goes for this rail infrastructure. This area is going to be, I mean, I really haven't figured out a lot of the stuff that we're actually going to be doing in this area. But I feel like it's worth showing you my thought process as we go through this. So this is the arterial that goes into downtown. It'll end up dead-ending towards the park, but I placed it, and then we're gonna have a light rail station right in front of the train station, which I wanted to make sure that because the train station is not in downtown. It's in an older district, which I wanted to, that's another reason I made that district sort of older. It's just because the train station itself, I'll show you the asset a little bit later. It's pretty conducive to like an older area, because it's an older looking train station. And I figured having an older area would look a little bit more realistic than having a really old train station in a newly developed area. But that's just me. The transition into that older area will be interesting, and I don't know how specifically I'm going to do it. I've done a little bit of it already, and you'll see a little bit of it in the next episode, but it's going to be a pretty difficult transition because it's going to be pretty stark, the contrast between downtown and that area. But downtown does transition pretty quickly into very new and high density development, so I think I can manage. It's just going to be one of the more difficult transitions in the city. We're going to have a lot of transitions to do, though, and I want to make sure that they're smooth. A lot of the transitions we have right now, like between downtown and the suburbs, are going to be redone simply because they don't really look realistic. I'd say that, and then some of the areas in what will be the harbor. But mostly, we've got a lot more to build in the city, and I'm trying not to redo stuff that I've already built and instead like expand around it and come back to it later to redo it. That's just me, though. Let me know in the comments, like, if you've got an area in your city, if you've been working on a city for a while, like what you do with it when you want to redo it. Like, if you're trying to build a big city but you've got an area that you really don't like, do you just sort of wait it out and try to work on new areas in the meantime and maybe get to it later, and then of course you never get to it? Or do you try to just immediately, once you find an area you want to redo it, like specifically for people who are working on like larger projects, or I guess even smaller projects? But I think it's more important for like larger projects where you're really trying to build out a huge city and you've got an area that just doesn't look quite right to you. Because I've been trying to move towards the wait it out side and maybe change it later. Although there's some stuff in New Windsor that I wish I had changed before I had expanded that I probably won't get around to changing, like the central train station, which needs a lot of work there. And so, I mean, there are a bunch of people who have been also commenting about New Windsor. I mean, I think I explained this a couple of episodes ago. New Windsor is not gone. It's just right now I'm really enjoying Columbia City, and you should just expect a lot of Columbia City, and hopefully we'll get back into New Windsor as the rebrand is applied in the coming weeks. But for now, I'm just really enjoying Columbia City, and I want to try to expand it as much as I can right now. But yeah, New Windsor is definitely not gone. Here we are working on the first bits of the grid layout, which will become one of the older districts, which we're going to build in the next episode. So just sort of keep an eye out for this area. Next episode, we're going to be building it out and actually placing buildings in almost all of the grids here, all of the blocks. And it's going to be a really, really cool episode. It's going to look awesome. I'm not going to spoil too much, but you should definitely look forward to that one. And I'm trying to figure out how to transition this arterial road with the light rail in the middle, because I need to have the light rail go towards the highway, because that's where the light rail goes along. What I end up doing, you'll see in sort of just a moment here, is I end up getting this smaller light rail road with parking in the middle actually, and making a 45-degree angle and just having it sort of abruptly end at this weird angle, but the light rail continues, so it almost looks like a road. So it doesn't look too awkward, and it looks like the city planners have very deliberately carved out this area so that it's the border of the sort of the park and development, which is going to be a very stark contrast, which I'm actually really looking forward to working on, because usually I have like a much more like smooth transition between development and undeveloped areas, but I want to have this really stark contrast between downtown and the park, just like Stanley Park in Vancouver, because I think parks like that are really, really fascinating. Like, I mean, obviously you can think of other stuff like, you know, Golden Gate Park in SF and then Central Park in New York City, but I like how really just wild Stanley Park is. I love stuff like that. And I also sort of like, I mean, I guess it's way different, but Griffith Park in LA is like a little bit like that in a sense, where you've got downtown pretty close to a lot of nature. And I really like that kind of thing in cities where it's less of a compromise between developments and I guess less developed areas, and more of a like really stark transition where you get your like a full dose of both of them. Which, yeah, that'll be a lot of fun to build. Hopefully we'll be able to do that in the coming episodes. Right now I'm just focused on like actual infrastructure and some of the main features of the city, like this train station, which, by the way, this train station asset, I don't know if I mentioned before, it's really good. It's going to be a little bit difficult working with this backside of it, but I've got some ideas. And what I'm basically doing here, I initially put this road down at ground level, at the level of the platform, I guess, there. That tactic didn't quite work out, so what I ended up doing is I ended up trying to use Terraform tool to create a like sort of a retaining wall. It didn't quite work, so I used the clipping networks, which have become sort of a staple of mine with these retaining walls. I love using the clipping networks because it just makes it so much easier to get rid of glitchy terrain and sort of force it to be glitchy, but in a different way so that you can control it. But yeah, and then I think I end up basically just expanding. So this area is going to be a different older district than the one on the other side of the train station. They're going to be two distinct districts. I don't really want to spoil too much, but I think you are going to enjoy them once those are built in the next two episodes. This over here, I'm just adding some sharrows to this lane because it connects to the arterial over there with the two actual bike lanes. And we've got a bunch of, I actually placed a bunch of pedestrian roads on this, like in this older area. We're gonna have a lot of just pedestrian only roads in that area, which is gonna be really cool because I don't really have them anywhere else in the city, and I figured that'd be a really cool area to add them. I placed, they're not like necessarily cobblestone, they're a different sort of design that's a little bit more modern, which is not necessarily too realistic, but it's fine. I like it. But yeah, it's mostly just sort of a grid pattern here, but working with these 45-degree angles, and I tried to keep the angles at exactly 45 degrees just because I want to be able to use some of the 45-degree and 135-degree buildings from the workshop, because it makes it a lot easier to get corners to work, because if you've detailed like grids that are sort of broken like this, you'll definitely know what that's like. And then over here, there's actually a trolley bus avenue that I'm extending down here. This will be a trolley bus avenue that will terminate at the end there. It won't continue with the waterfront, but that'll be one of the main trolley bus lines of the city. I'm gonna have like probably 3 or 4 main trolley bus lines, which are sort of go through the downtown area and its surroundings, and we're gonna have one that goes into that older town on the front end of the train station, which you might have already seen me place the infrastructure for that network, or for that line, I guess. And then obviously I've got like connecting roads between different trolley bus roads that are not necessarily used, but they just allow me to get the trolley buses onto the network, which I don't know if those necessarily exist in real life, but I didn't plan my trolley bus network out in a way that was extremely detailed. But I will make sure that I do have a plan for it. And yeah, this area, I really don't know what I'm going to end up doing down here. Once again, I don't detail anything really in this episode, but this area down here would maybe be a good spot for like some sort of cafe with a patio. I also placed ploppable pavement on top of the texture from the train station just to make it a little bit more uniform. But yeah, I mean, some sort of restaurant complex down there could be cool, I think. Something like that. Maybe even some sort of farmer's market, but it'd be a little bit weird because there's no ramp down there. So I don't, it'd be hard to train. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. That wouldn't quite work. But yeah, I am definitely happy with all of these different, like all the grade separation here is really cool. I like it. Now we're transitioning to a portion here where we're going to place a rail network around this bend, which is this hill that we made in the last episode so that we could have a highway tunnel go through it. And I'm using some different bridges and elevated portions from the railway mod, or pack, I guess, to sort of wind this train around the bend here. And I'm probably going to have a LRT line just be completely parallel to it in the future around that bend, which would be pretty cool. And I'd probably use the fenceless version, and it would look pretty interesting, actually, just to have two different tracks there. I also might just make it have its own bridge. We'll see. But I like how that works there. I'm also just trying to make this really compact in terms of how it integrates with the interchange here, because this rail line will sort of be the barrier between development and then this undeveloped area in this interchange, which is a pretty hefty interchange in terms of how much space it takes up, a little bit more than I'd like it to, but I think we could do some interesting development there, and maybe some like construction. I don't know. I'm mostly focused on just expanding the infrastructure in this episode rather than thinking about what I'm going to do in specific areas. Like the transition from what will be the old town to downtown, like, was something I really didn't think about. I just built the infrastructure for it just so that I'm able to start thinking about that at a separate time, because I always seem to make it work somehow. So yeah, and then all these different bridges sort of connect across the rail line pretty well. I like how that works. Then we've got that bike path that I placed earlier that you might have seen. I'm actually probably going to show you that in a little bit more detail in game, because I finally figured out how to make yellow lines in the middle and make it look good. So let's hop in game. Let's take a look at what we just built, because it's sort of it's a mouthful, but I think you'll like it. All right, let's take a look at this quickly, because it might have looked a little bit confusing in the time lapse, but this is what we've got here. Firstly, we have the central train station, which it's got these two different road layouts on either end of it. Those are going to be two different older neighborhoods, but they're going to be distinct. We're going to be building those in the next two episodes, so you'll know what those are soon enough. We've got a train station over here right in front of the, or we got a light rail station right in front of the train station, rather. And there are sort of people over here at this stop. I don't know why there's nobody at this stop. I guess the last train managed to pick all of them up. But that's the stop for the northbound service, and this is the stop for the southbound service into downtown. And that gets you within a couple stops right into downtown pretty quickly. So even though the train station's in like an area that's not necessarily right in downtown, it'll fit the area a little bit better than just placing it right in the middle of downtown, and it'll work with our rail network better, and it's just connected via light rail pretty easily. There is this bike path which I made, which way too many pedestrians are using. I mean, yeah, I'd rather just have mostly bikes on here, but that's fine, I guess. Anyway, yeah, they go across there, I guess. It's fine. I wanted to mostly just see a bunch of cyclists using that. There are definitely some cyclists, although I can't even find any right here. That's sort of crazy. But yeah, it's a path, but I placed just yellow lines in the middle. It's as simple as that, just placing a park path with yellow lines in the middle for a nice, like, bike path. I was trying to figure out how to get a bike path to work for a while, but this will just have to do even with all the pedestrians. Yeah, that's about it, though. We've got, yeah, this arterial just sort of gets a little bit narrower once you enter downtown, but I do like it. This is the bridge that the road itself creates, which I sort of like that. This is totally not detailed, obviously. We will detail this in the future, and this train line sort of goes over here. It goes under the interchange, and which, by the way, like, having a light rail pass over here with cars passing over the viaduct and a train going below, that's going to be really cool. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, it goes sort of along this corner here, and you've got these really cool views of the train going by. So that's pretty awesome. Yeah. Anyway, that's basically it for this episode. I think the next 2 episodes are going to be some of your favorites. They're going to be really good. And, I mean, these past 2 episodes that we've done, we have done a lot of very important work. Like, that's a very big portion of the city. It's going to be a very culturally important portion of the city. And we finally got the infrastructure laid down for it. So hopefully you are excited for that. And hopefully you're excited for whenever we start the Stanley Park area, because building on such a just stark contrast between development and no development is going to be a lot of fun. And this is sort of weird. I don't think I actually ended up figuring out how to get this to look perfect, but I like how that just really smoothly transitions there. And that will lead to what, maybe the zoo will be over there, maybe the zoo will be over here. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but it'll lead somewhere. But yeah, that's basically it. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like, helps out a ton. Subscribe if you are new to the channel, and hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button to get notified whenever I'm premiering a video, because I premiere videos, and that means that you can chat with me when they go live, and having notifications on means you're not going to miss that. And, you know, that would be pretty cool to chat with all of you when the video is first going out so I can answer your questions, so make sure to have notifications on. And you can support me on Patreon if you want to get access to the save game for Columbia City, fly around, build in the city, anything you want. You can get the save game download over on Patreon, or get access to videos early whenever I finish them, or get your name in the credits at the end of the video. Or just if you want to support me, Patreon is definitely a good place to do that. But yeah, I mean, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Those are in the description as well. That's it. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you're excited to see what fills this infrastructure we've built in the past couple of episodes, and I will see you next time.